We were already going to call it the Roadkill EP. We had decided that between like us and Mohawk Barbie, but we didn't have a cover for it. And Chris was driving to the dentist, and he pulled over his car, and he jumped out, and he took a picture.
Oh, God. Welcome, everyone, to This Was The Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. Before we start, if you want to support the podcast, just go over to thiswasthescene.com and scroll down a little bit to donate. And there's just like a one-time donation. You could do like a Venmo, or you can also sign up to be a Patreon member. Or you can go to patreon.com/thiswasthescene. It's only $1 a month. All that money just goes to help paying the bills for this thing. So if you want to go do that, you'd be fantastic. Stick Figure Suicide was a punk rock band from Milltown, New Jersey. The band was formed in '97 and were part of the emerging emo-punk rock scene of the late '90s in the Northeast. Their music has been described as a mastery of old-school hardcore moves and hyperspeed tempos with clean, precise, overdriven guitars, and they are classified as a blend of fast and melodic hardcore punk with lyrics that are occasionally humorous. They drew comparison to the music of Minor Threat and also Against All Authority. Maximumrocknroll described their songs on the Roadkill EP split with Mohawk Barbie as displaying some pretty good energy of their own with their early 90s style hardcore. This one really goes back to the origins of this podcast itself, which was very Jersey focused, because my old band used to play with these guys a lot. So it was really cool to sit down with Paul and just reminisce about all that stuff. And there's definitely stories that I've told many times in this podcast, but if you're new to it, then they'll be new to you. And if you've been listening for a while, then you're just going to be hearing some things repeated. It's still fun stuff, so I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. I got Paul on the Skype, and this is what we chat about. How to develop a screaming voice, trash the CD comp, slicing his hands up at their first show, vintage vinyl, their drummer overselling them to get them on shows, their song Dred, playing with Anti-Flag, getting in a fistfight with one of the other members, the Roadkill EP, meeting Dave Smalley, and a ton more. Make sure you go check out his band Sophistipunx. There's a link in the show notes, so I made it easy for you. And that's all I got to say. So feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who would love some punk rock nostalgia. With that said, let's get started. Didn't our first show with you guys, wasn't that at the Bordentown show?
Yeah, I think the first show we ever played with you guys was probably with Boxcar somewhere in Bordentown.
It was that Pavilion show where Bigwig played?
Yes, it was probably, I think that might have been our first show, and you guys might have still been Congress of Cow.
Yeah, we were.
And I think Nothing New played that show. Shower with Goats,
Boxcar, Bigwig, you guys, us, Nothing New.
That was our first show. That was our first show ever. Steve from Speed Bump put that on.
Steve Bump, yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh my god. Yeah, they played.
I'm still friends with him, dude. He's still poking around the scene. He's got his band Pissed, which is they're really good. I don't know if you remember Just Another Band. Anthony from Just Another Band is the singer. He's also the drummer of Honolulu. So he's still floating around too. I don't know if you ever make your way down to the Mill Hill, but you could definitely have a throwback moment there. It's pretty much Brendan's always hanging out and everybody like that. So
when I was living in Jersey, because I moved to North Carolina a couple years ago.
Yeah, I know. I saw that.
The Mill Hill was the one spot that I've always wanted to go to just because I haven't seen Dave in fucking forever.
Yep, he still runs it. He still runs the basement, and he's still in the main bartender down there and stuff.
Was that place around when we were playing shows, or is it newer? Newer meaning 15 years or old or something?
Yeah. I don't think it was around quite back then. I think it was slightly later. The Mill Hill's always been around, but doing the basement shows, I'm not 100% sure about that. You should probably have Dave. You should have Dave on here.
I asked him. He won't do it. He was too shy. He's like, oh, I don't know. I don't really want to. I'm like, come on, man. I'm like, I would love to talk to you about it, because he was always at all those central South Jersey shows. He'd show up with the Your Mama Love Us dudes.
Yep. And I run into every now and again. You'll run into one of those guys there, you run into Chris Pinto over there or something at the Mill Hill, because they're all still at least they're still around in that general area. Some of them I think are probably in PA at this point, because it's just cheaper. You lived here.
Yeah, that's why I don't live there anymore. That's why I moved.
Yeah, exactly. In 2013 was my orphan year. My mother passed away. I entered the house where Stick Figure Suicide was born. I grew up in this house, but the band that was like where we used to practice was in my basement.
Every time I go back to Jersey, I always drive to my hometown in Jefferson, and I'll always go to my old neighborhood and drive by my old house and just see it, and it's like a flood of memories comes back in all in one shot. So I'll see that in that moment, and then I drive away, and then I live around it. But since you're in your house, is that wild to just like, do you see it with like kind of where it looks new, or does it just look like feel the same in memories and stuff since you were a kid, like it's just constantly surrounding you?
It's I would say it's the memories constantly surrounding you, which is cool because it's like the way I look at it, when you buy something, right? You buy a house. I definitely wasn't gonna have the money to like have my dream house built, buy a field and have my dream house built. That was never gonna happen. You know, some people have that thing, you know, where they're the first people to ever live in that house. The way I look at it is like this house, I know all its quirks. I know what needs to be fixed, what doesn't, all that kind of stuff. Still like going down in the basement. The drum set, I still have that drum set. It's not here anymore though. It's over my brother's house in his garage. We jam every now and again. So I still play. You still play, right? A little bit?
Nah, I mean, I like picked up my guitar for the first time the other day in I don't even know. Like, I mean, it was the longest I think I played it in like a year or so, year and a half. Like I don't know. Like I was into the whole music thing when I was younger, and then once the band broke up, and then I tried like another band in my like my mid-20s, and I was like, I don't think music's just not really. Like listening to it, and I recorded some stuff, but I just didn't have the same love for it anymore. So I just have like different creative outlets, like this thing that the podcast is like kind of my new thing, really, and this is more of this is like my band, I guess, at the moment.
Yeah, I got you. I started a band a few years back, a band called Sophistipunx. We still play the fast punk rock stuff, but our guitar player is one of the best people like I've ever seen play ska, dude.
Why? In what way?
He's just so good at it. He's just so good at playing ska and ska like stuff and reggae and stuff like that compared to any other guitarist I've ever played with.
Is it a ska band, or is it kind of mixed between punk and ska?
We have some ska punk songs, and we have like some like just really fast punk songs that would have been perfectly at home in Stick Figure Suicide. We've got some like brutal hardcore stuff where I like scream the whole song. I got really good at that from listening to Rise Against. I got really good at screaming.
What's the word? What's the key to be able to sing hardcore? Like I've always wanted. I was like, man, I really wish I could have a fucking hardcore voice, and I just don't. My voice just doesn't do that, or like I've never really tried to. So like, what do you need to do to actually make that happen without like losing your voice?
Honestly, it's a similar function to whistling, believe it or not. Like so,
What?
yeah. Screaming is a similar function to whistling, and I thought that was really strange too. But I found a pirated copy of the Zen of Screaming.
Okay.
I was like, wait, with Melissa Cross? Like, I was like, let me check this out. And I checked it out, and I was like, wow, it's like not what you think it is. When you whistle, right, you don't use a lot of like breath or anything, right? And you don't use a lot of intensity. You use the shape of your mouth to shape the sound. And that's like what I mean by like when you scream, you use that more than you use your throat.
Interesting. I'm like literally as you're talking, I'm like putting my mouth like I'm whistling and thinking like this. I could see how this would translate into you creating like a screamo voice. So Chris, who was in Lane Meyer, he actually went to her for voice lessons when he started Day at the Fair because Dom, who was in Scratch Kid and Escape Engine, he went to her to learn how to just not lose his voice. And then I mean, I didn't realize how famous she was because I think like the guys from like Every Time I Die and all those screamo bands, they all went to her or go to her to learn how to do that shit.
Yeah, see, you don't think about it, but yeah, no, I mean that's most of those guys learned how to do that from her, I think. And it was a very cool. Like I said, it was very like eye opening. And before that, I would scream. And you probably even remember like SFS. I screamed sometimes in some of the songs. I would lose my voice sometimes.
Well, you were like yelling. I was re-listening to some of the stuff. Like I was listening to like the album that's got Dred and Kim and Open Wounds on it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. No, that's the album we did with Dave Smalley.
Who's Dave Smalley? What's that?
Dave Smalley was the singer. Well, he's the singer of Dag Nasty. He's the singer of All. Right.
Oh my God, anyone listening would be like, wow, this Mike guy's a fucking idiot. I'm not that punk rock, so.
You can cut that piece out.
No, I'll leave it in. I got humility, I'll lose punk points.
Yeah, no, it was a thing like years ago. We played CBGBs, and we met this dude named Todd Anthony. He was in a band called Under the Gun. He just happened to like be at the show, and he was like, "Hey, I got this show I'm doing with this band. They're called the Sharpshooters." And I was like, "Sharpshooters?" I was like, "Isn't that like a Dave Smalley side project from Down by Law?" And he was like, "Yeah, Dave's also in Down by Law, right?" And now he's in a band called Stay Asleep. No, yes, not Stay Asleep.
I'm thinking of Bigwig right there.
Yeah, that's Bigwig Stay Asleep. Yep.
Yeah.
No, something sleep is the name of the band. I can't think of it off the top of my head. He's doing that recently, and like he was doing that. Those guys, I guess, were originally doing something with him where Dave was doing like a retrospective of like all his stuff that he's done over the years. So he was like playing live, and he was playing like some Dag Nasty stuff. He was playing I think he was playing some All stuff, some Down by Law stuff, and stuff like that. And it was like a very like intimate setting, but that's how that whole thing happened with that band.
Don't Sleep is the name.
Don't Sleep. That's
and
it. And
Tony from the Commercials, he's in the band with
Really?
him. Yeah.
Wow, we toured with those guys.
With the Commercials?
We played a bunch of shows with them on a tour once, yeah. Because we met them at, I don't know if you remember I Flashed You. They used to be like a zine. They were in like the Trenton kind of scene. We met the Commercials at like an American Legion or something that we played with them. And then we played some more shows with them. And I want to say like Punchline played that show too.
Did that zine put out a comp?
No, Trash. You're thinking of Trash's CD.
It's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah, Trash the CD. I just clicked on it.
We actually put that out. That was actually me, Sprout, Chris, and Molly Schneider, and Chris Kakis put together Unfair Records. Remember we had all those like, I don't think were you guys on it?
I'm looking at it right now because I just clicked on it in the NGPP SoundCloud. And I can't like find the link to the whole album, but I feel like Sean just kept putting us and just giving our songs to all the local comps which came out, which was awesome.
Yeah, no, it was definitely cool. I know you guys were on all the other ones.
Yeah, like White Powder Donuts and what were some other local ones? I know we're kind of jumping over the place, but I don't care right now.
I still have a bunch of copies of White Powder Donuts because Stein was in SFS at one point for a tour. He ended up bringing a bunch of those on tour to just like give them away. And I still have some in the merch box. I was looking at it the other day. I was like, oh my God, I still have copies of White Powder Donuts.
Wow. I feel like that was like a popular comp for the locals like stuff back then. Like that one and then the one you guys put out. I just remember always seeing these at shows.
Yeah, dude, the Thrash's CD sold we pressed 1,000 copies of it, and it sold that 1,000 copies in like 2 months or something insane.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was because we would sell it to the bands for $3 a copy. They would sell it for $5 a copy, and then basically like we put together tons of shows. We put together release shows like all over the state and featuring some of those bands. I think OR Rebellion's on it. Welcome Home Travis might be on it too. I'm not sure. LWL's on it. LWL's on it because we went to Portrait to mix it, and we had room for like one more band and one more song. What's his name?
Steve.
No, the owner of Portrait.
Chris Badami.
Chris. I knew his name was Chris. I couldn't think of his last name. Chris is like, hey, I just recorded this band that I think would be great on your comp, and he put me on the phone with Steve.
Oh, get out of here.
And yeah, and like Steve and I became like instant friends like that day. And that was just one of the things that was so great about our scene, right? Is like we were all friends. We all like forced each other onto shows. Like I remember doing that. Like someone running a show and be like, well, yeah, we'll play, but you got to put so and so on it too.
That's why we had like fucking 10 bands in a 4-hour slot or 4 or 5 hour slot. Just like,
how did we do that? How did we do that?
Because everyone had basically like a 30-minute set. I don't know, man. I mean, it would have like the band that went on at the end kind of got fucked a little bit because they'd be like, okay, well, we only have like 15 minutes now. So
yeah,
we're going to not talk.
The cops would come and shut it down 10 minutes into the set. That would happen to Bigwig a lot, dude. I remember that. Like that happened to Bigwig. One time we were playing with them at Burlington Elks Lodge, a Joe Polito show. And I remember that happening. I remember some kids got like mugged or something outside on the streets of Burlington, um, and because of that, like the cops showed up to the venue and just like shut everything down. I remember like Bigwig literally played to like the bitter end. They were still playing as like stuff was being like physically shut off by the cops. Like it was pretty crazy, dude.
That's awesome. Dude, I just pulled up the CD, the comp that you did, and it's got, I'll just name a couple. It's got like you guys, Felix Frump, 52 pickup, bareback. It's got, and on it, it's left wing Lester. It's not even LWL. So they even put on it as that. Your Mama Love Us, bareback, it's a Shower with Goats, High Strung, Oil Rebellion, Mohawk Barbie. I mean, there's like the Central Jersey bands, I like then and Trenton. I was kind of like grouped you guys with
Yeah,
that.
well, that's where we like I said, our first show was
Bordentown.
was Bordentown. Was that no, not Bordentown. It's Hightstown American Legion. I remember playing that show and it being our very first show and like hearing all these bands and just being like I think we were like the fourth band maybe. Nothing New played and they were really really good and like Pat had like a good voice and
Yeah.
and I think they were like 14 at the time.
Yeah, they were young. They were our. It was my buddy Tim Woosley, his little brother Rod. They were. I think they hitched a ride down there with us, maybe. But they were like our group of friends. His brother. Like that's how we got to like befriend those kids.
Yeah, and the whole thing was like this whole deal, like, and I remember just being so nervous that I was like, okay, so and you might, I don't know if you remember this, but the pavilion thing had rafters going across it, right? That were, to my chagrin, turned out to be metal. But I jumped up onto one of the tables and I jumped up and I like swung around on them like a monkey. I was just trying to put on like the craziest show possible because I was like, if I put on the craziest show possible, maybe no one will notice that we suck. And that I can't sing. And I remember swinging from those rafters, dude, and there were like gashes in my hands, and my hands were bleeding after we were, and there was like, and the rafters, because they were metal and constantly exposed to the elements, they were rusted.
Oh God, I do not remember this. Holy shit! Did you get a tetanus shot afterwards? You get lockjaw?
No, I don't think so. No, I didn't get. I remember pouring like bottled water on my hands and trying to get the rust out of my gut.
God. Oh my God.
Like I said, that was my very first show, and I've had people come up to me and tell me that like they remember that, and they're just being like, "Holy shit, this band's insane!" Like, because I didn't know what to do. Like, I was just so nervous that I was just like, "Well, I'll just put on a really great show."
Well, what led up to that? So, like, because I always start with like, how you got involved in the scene and stuff. So, like, how did you go from getting into the scene to playing that show?
The original lineup I formed with my friend Jay, Tommy, and we formed at the Domino's that I worked at. And these guys play guitar, and I was like, I play drums, so let's start a band. Prior to that, I had just played in my basement playing like metal and stuff. And I played drums for an industrial band that was kind of like Knights of Red-ish, like one time. I played one show with this band called Tones of Joy. I want to say we played like a New Brunswick frat party or something, and I was just the drummer. I didn't like anything, and I would just sit there and just basically whack like da 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 da. That was the drum beat of every song, and pretty much like I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And then I told these guys, I'm like, hey, I play drums. Why don't we just call it? And we tried out singers, and we used to practice at a place called Big Noise over in New Brunswick. And we tried out a bunch of singers. And one night, the singer guy, he got on the drums, screwing around. And then I grabbed the mic because he wanted to play drums for a few minutes. And it turned out I was a better singer than he was. He was a better drummer than I was. So we were like, okay, let's do that. Then, he didn't want to be a drummer. He's like, no, I signed up to be a singer, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, but you're not a good singer. You're worse than me. And I'm not good either. So like, let's, I was very like monotone back then when I very first started. I got better as the time went on. You practice your craft or whatever.
Yeah.
Not that I have a real craft to practice, but you know what I mean. Like, you practice and you get better. You start being able to hit notes and not just sound completely monotone, like you're just yelling everything. And then over time, it was like, okay, so we tried all these people, I went to a show at Middlesex County College with Murphy's Law. This new record store, Curmudgeon Record, was there with a box on a table. And I ended up talking to those guys and ended up being like, hey, maybe I could find a drummer by can I put a flyer up in your store? And they said, sure. I put a flyer up, and this kid named Gil Klein, he answered the ad. Gil was a machine, man. Like, he answered the ad. He came and joined up. He was in the band Class Dismissed. I don't know if you remember them at all. I think they're on a few of the scene comps too. But he was in that band. He's the one that got flyers, for different venues. Because we used to go to record stores and get flyers, right? I mean, that's how we found out about shows. We had to actually go out into the world and interact with
put some
other
effort
human
into
beings,
it, yeah,
and interact with other human beings. So we would get flyers at Vintage Vinyl, which I think closed this year.
Yeah, I was just there the weekend that they closed.
Yeah, I went over there probably a few days before that. I bought a bunch of stuff off the wall. The wall, the fabled wall that has all that stuff that you want, but you can't buy because it's too damn expensive. Well, everything was 75% off. So I was like, I'm gonna buy some things off the wall that I've always wanted.
Now's my time.
Yeah, exactly. So I put a flyer up. Gil joined our band on drums.
Okay.
And then Gil was a machine, dude. He called everybody who had a flyer and just basically tried to get us on shows. And he told Steve some kind of crazy story that the equivalent story of I have a girlfriend and she's from Niagara Falls, that kind of story, but about our band. What is that movie, Breakfast Club, where he tells that crazy story about he has a girlfriend and you guys don't know her, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
he told everybody who would listen that we were signed or about to be signed and blah blah, anything he could. I didn't know any of this was going on because I would not have condoned this, right? He just basically told anyone anything, and I found this out from Steve years later, actually.
Oh, you didn't know you didn't know at the time he was doing this?
No, I did not know at the time he was doing this because I would not have been cool with it. But he was going around and just telling people that we were this up and coming band and blah blah blah, and just he should be a manager for some band somewhere. He managed to get us on that show, and he managed to not just get us on that show, but we should have been the opening band. It was our first show ever, and we weren't even the opening band because he had sold us so well. I had been in the scene for a long time. I'm a little older than you guys, I think. I'm 47, so I'm a little older.
Yeah, you're 4 years older. So you were closer to Sean, who's the drummer for Landmeyer.
Yeah. Yep. Me and Brendan, I think, is about around my age, and I think Derek Boxcar is my age. Tom, I think, might be or close to my age.
Wait, so explain. Okay, I like to dig into things. So what, you guys didn't get a show for a minute, and there's some turmoil. What was going on there?
Well, it was the other guys in the band. I had written all our songs that we had originally, on our original demo tape. One of them was actually a cover of my brother and his friends. It's a hidden track on the tape. But all the other songs I had written, right? I don't play guitar. I don't play an instrument well. I would sing guitar parts or, badly play guitar parts to show someone, hey, play this riff or that riff. Because these guys that I was working with at the, they were very metal heady. I didn't want to play metal. I wanted to play punk rock. Push came to shove, and we, went, and then they tried to kick me out of the band.
Really?
Yeah. My bass player at the time was a good friend of mine that I had known from the high school band days, when you play in a band in high school. And I didn't play in a band in high school, but Chris did, a Sprout. He played in a band in high school. And anyway, he had basically said he wasn't going to do it anymore. And then Mark, so our drummer at the time, our bass player at the time, he called me up because Gil had left the band a while later, mainly because of that shit that I just told you he was doing. And Mark called me up and was like, dude, they're trying to kick you out of the band. He's like, they called me about it. And he was like, no, I'm staying with, you guys do whatever you want. I'm staying with Paul. And he had been in the same scene, that high school scene with Chris. So we went over to Chris's house, and I convinced Chris to pull his guitar out and play guitar. and Alex played drums. It was that show that made all the difference. We played that show, and that was in some kid's backyard. Matt Berlint, I think his name was. It was some kid's backyard. Boxcar played that show too, and so we were seeing them for the second time, and that's like the day that like we became friends with Boxcar, and it was just this thing where after that show, which was like the second, maybe it might have been the third, I don't remember, it was a long time ago, as you know, but that show, after that show, we got what I like to refer to as I always thought of it as like a slipstream kind of thing, right? Where like you just kind of like got picked up in like the whirlwind. After that show, we started getting offered shows. You know, people started calling us up and being like, "Hey, I'm doing this show. Can you play?" And I'm like, "Wait, what is this? How does this happen?" Like, you know, like what the hell?
We've
like,
earned it.
Yeah, it was like once we got, you know, Chris and myself and this kid named Mark and Alex was playing drums. Like once we had that, we finally had like a solid core of the band. My vocals, I always thought of my vocals as you either like them or you don't, because they're weird. I think they're weird. Whenever I hear myself on anything, I always think like I hate my voice. And I'm sure like that's probably true of everyone who ever hears their own voice, because it sounds different in your head than it does, you know, when you put it on tape, right?
Yeah, it's always weird when you hear it on tape. I mean, I don't know, because I was, like I said, I was listening to that album. What is it?
Nice, totally badass.
What's it called? Because there's no name on the CD cover. It's like it just says Stick Figure Suicide, and it's got the drawings. Like it looks like
yeah, nice, totally badass. If you look at the spine, you'll see that it says.
Oh, okay, because it only has the front of the picture on on SoundCloud. But I think when you have a hardcore voice in general, it's like you are gonna kind of, what's the word, like push certain people who want like a nice gentle voice to be into it.
No, exactly. And like my whole thing was like I was like super influenced by 7 Seconds and Minor Threat, obviously. That whole thing with Dred, our first song where we really like started to find our sound, I think was the song that's on the split that we did with
Mohawk Barbie.
Mohawk Barbie, yeah, where we did and we have a song on there called Every Evil Hour Hand. I think that's where we started to really like find our sound, where we kind of decided we started to incorporate some more musicality into it instead of just like banging away at 4 chords. And that's actually completely inspired by, we went to a show at what's that name of the place? It was in North Jersey, started with an M. They had a church, and it was Boxcar and Bigwig, and me and Chris went to go see Boxcar because, you know, we were friends with them at this point. And we went to see them, and we were just like, when Bigwig played, it was the first time we ever saw Bigwig. When Bigwig...
No, first time you guys saw Bigwig was at that Pavilion show, because they played like right before Boxcar or after Boxcar.
Oh, the first time Chris ever saw Bigwig.
Okay.
Chris wasn't in the band then. Right? So it was me, Jay, Tommy, and Alex, and, you know, myself. It was just the 4 of us. Chris saw Bigwig and was like, wait a minute, you can do that? You can do that and it's still considered punk rock? That basically opened the floodgates to being like, wait a minute, we don't have to like play simple Ramones sounding type stuff. We can do stuff that's more technical, more, you know, and it was that show, and specifically Bigwig, that kind of change things for us.
You know, it's funny you said that, because that is another influence I heard in the first, like, the couple of songs on that CD. I was like, I hear Bigwig in this.
Yeah, there's definitely, like I said, there's some aspects of that. Well, it was like, and you also can hear in Dred anyway. I mean, you can hear the deliberate use of the chord progression from Metallica, from Four Horsemen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that that was like our little tribute, because we like loved Metallica, and that's also why if you listen to SFS's like stuff, there's like, you know, 1,000 different parts. Like it's like there's all those different like chord changes and time changes and stuff, and that's because of Metallica. That was because we're listening to like early Metallica stuff, and we had like grown up on it, and we just like. And Chris was like hugely into it. Metallica and
Bigwig.
Metallica, Bigwig, Bouncing Souls. After that happened, where we started like getting offered shows, and we started like, there was a period of time where, and it might have probably happened to you guys. In fact, I know it happened to you guys too, where people would stick you on flyers for shows you were never asked to play.
I think I remember this because like I would just show up. Like Sean would say, "Hey, we have a show," because we never booked shit. Sean did all the booking, which is just so stressful. And we're like, yeah. So when the show went bad or something like that, or it would be crappy, we're like, "Thanks, Sean."
No, there were shows that I went that like I would see like there were shows where they say you guys were booked because you guys were booked all the time, just like we were booked all the time. You guys were booked all the time. Humble was booked all the time. LWL was booked all the time, right?
Yeah, Mohawk Barbie, High Strung, like
We were all booked all the time, right? That was a thing where we looked at it and we were just kind of like, we would get asked to play a show and we'd say no, we can't because we haven't a show that day. And we had done the thing where we made a mistake and I played 3 shows in a single day. Don't do that.
especially as a singer.
Especially as a singer who like decides to like jump around and flip onto his back and all kinds of.
Wait, where were the shows? Do you remember where?
West Orange American Legion.
I'm just trying to map just the craziness of the drive you had to do.
I want to say it might have been the Palace, and then it was the Bordentown Derby Firehouse.
I wonder if like we played any of those shows that day with you guys because we had to have been like at one of those venues.
I think you might have played Punk Fest. Punk Fest was like the. I think it was ridiculous. He set up 2 stages in the same room. I think he had something like 18 bands on the show or something ridiculous. It was nonsense, and and I'm pretty sure you guys played that.
Is that the video that's online? Like the shower with like we're in it, Humble's playing, shower with goats plays.
Yeah, Shower with Goats was there.
Was Supermarket
Boxcar
All-Stars
was there
at that show? Do you remember the Supermarket All-Stars show where I was like, this band's totally ripping off Slapstick?
No, I don't remember. I remember them. I remember Supermarket All-Stars, and I remember Slapstick.
But it was at that show. So I'm just trying to put like which that was, but incidental.
Yeah, dude. I just remember like so many. I remember a great show we played with Annie Flag. Annie Flag was at the what was the Lyndhurst thing? I don't remember what it was. Lyndhurst. Was that American Legion?
Yeah, that was a Legion because they had the steps in the front that walked up to
the columns. Yeah. Yep. So we ended up playing that show, and we didn't we thought about it years later, and it's like, wait a minute, because we were talking with Annie Flag, and Annie Flag asked us, how much like touring do you guys do or whatever. It sounded to me like listening back to it, I'm like, wait a minute, was Annie Flag asking us to tour with them? And we didn't even fucking pick up on it. It was early on though, right? It was when they were still playing like American Legions and stuff.
Yeah, they were playing the album with Die for Your Government.
Yeah, yep. And I remember being at Warped Tour a couple of years later, and they were playing on they were playing on one of the bigger stages, and this kid being like, dude, I love this band so much, and I don't know why, but I was just like, dude, I know them. I was like, you want me to see if they'll come over and talk to you? And he was like, yeah. And he's like, really, you do that? And I ended up getting him to kid come over and talk to him, and because of that, the kid came and watched us, because we were playing that day on one of the stages, and it was cool because we were playing on a local stage where we had some kind of Ernie Ball Battle of the Bands kind of thing. We're playing, and the crowd's getting bigger and bigger, and I'm like, dude, what the hell is going on? Because I was like, there's got to be better bands playing right now, besides us. Turned out one of the people in the crowd was in the band The Deviants. The Deviants came and watched us because we apparently were on a compilation with them. This dude from New York had contacted us a while back and said, hey, do you guys want to be on this comp? And we were like, yeah, let's go on this. Sure, we'll send you a song. So we sent him Dred. I think we sent him Dred.
Mm-hmm.
And we sent everybody Dred.
Yeah, that's a good song.
that was our song. That was the song that, like I said, got us played on K-Rock. It got played on K-Rock in New York. Matt Pinfield played it on his show. He had a show called Local Licks or something like that. And KROQ played it. And K Edge played it, and Arizona, and it started going places, and that was because it had Dave's name on it, because it said Dave Smalley mixed the record, so that was what helped us. But getting back to the other thing, because I'm ADD guy, by the way. I'm a bad ADD and I bounce around. So
that's okay. I'll rein it in. So the Deviants are in the crowd, and
so they invite us. Now I don't know if you know this, but when you play Warped Tour, there's an after party each night.
And so they do like a cookout or something.
They do a cookout. The Deviants came and invited us to the cookout, and I got to like hang out with like Pennywise and NoFX and like all these bands that were like my heroes. That's just it was so crazy, dude. And we got to meet Kevin Lyman, the guy who runs Warped Tour, and that's how we proceeded then to get on Warped Tour several other times. I think we were on Warped Tour like 3 or 4 times.
What stage did you guys play when you? Yeah, we'll go back to the cookout in a second, but like moving, kind of just dipping into the future a little bit.
The cookout, like I said, the cookout was a thing with like I said, everybody was there, and we were the only local band there. It was just because the Deviants had specifically invited us, and the Deviants were running it because they were like the new kids on the block at the time on the tour, so they had to run it each night. They introduced us around to like Pennywise and NoFX and all those guys. They were like I guess the Deviants like really liked us because they were going around out of their way to like show us to people.
So when you guys are doing all this and you're starting to get a little bit of a, you're getting like a fan base, people are starting to notice you. What in the inner camp were you guys thinking? Like, were you balancing this with just like, oh, we work and then we just play some shows and that's just the way it is, or were you like, let's go after this thing?
Oh, we work and we play some shows. Like, and that was our thing. And we planned, we were like, hey, we should start, branching out more, play tours, do stuff like that.
Because I see that you guys put out, I mean, again, this is going with Discogs right now, but you've got the split with Mohawk Barbie in 98, and then you've got Nice, Totally Badass on Umbilical.
In 99.
99.
Yep.
And then the last thing it says you put out was Mission, but then the other record we keep talking about, that was, because like I'm trying to piece all this together because you guys break up in 2007, but like 2002 you have a release, and then so by Discogs it's just saying like you basically have 5 years where you just between putting out your last release and then 2007 happens, you break up, and so you don't put anything out, but you did.
Nice, Totally Badass got repressed at least 3 times, where basically it got picked up by a different label each time.
Yeah, it's got Umbilical, it's got Reinforcement. Okay, so that was the one you did in 99, and then so you do put out a final release in 2002, and then put nothing out for 5 years.
Yeah, because we couldn't get our shit together basically. We still existed, but like it's kind of like that, like a hiatus kind of thing where we never like officially broke up. We still existed. We still occasionally got together and practiced and worked on songs. We recorded a song called Blood in the Water, which we never released, but it was recorded in, I want to say 2007. We did do a couple shows in 2007. But by then, the lineup was different yet again. We did a reunion show in 2013 at the Mill Hill, and we were all tricked into doing that.
What do you mean?
The kid who ran it, he's like persona non grata because he turned out to be a really bad dude. We found that out later. But no, basically he was just this dude that we all knew from the Mill Hill. He asked me about it, right? And I was like, well, I would do it if Chris would do it. And Chris was a different Chris. This is Chris Snee, was from Pennsylvania. He had joined our band in, I think, 2001. Around the same time Brendan joined. Brendan was, B-Nuts was the drummer of SFS on the second record. The Mission record is all Brendan. We broke up, like I said, we broke up, or I left the band I left the band for a while in 2001.
Oh, so they had a different singer for a minute?
They tried. They tried. They said they couldn't do it because I guess my being a drummer, I sing on the beat. Now that I pointed out, you'll be able to. It'll be something you can never unhear. I don't sing in a typical way because I'm not like trained or anything like that. So when they tried out like different people, yeah, it was a bad thing where like basically Chris and I, Sprout, we've been friends our whole lives. And we got in this really bad fist fight.
Wow, on tour. Really?
Yeah, we got in this bad fist fight on tour, and I quit that day.
So what year was that?
I think that was like 2000, 2001, somewhere in there. And Stein was playing bass at the time for us. And this dude named Todd Anthony that I mentioned before from the band Under the Gun. he was playing guitar, and Omar was still our drummer? Yeah, Omar was still our drummer, and that was for a tour. We had driven from Florida to Pennsylvania, played a show with Dynamite Boy.
Okay.
On that tour, and then drove home, and then we were gonna play a house party here in New Jersey. We were gonna play like somebody's house. We were gonna just like play. They had a pool, and so we were just gonna like play in their yard. And then we had a couple more shows for the tour. I think we had a show in Maryland and a show in Virginia maybe, and then the tour was gonna be over. But after that fist fight, I was kind of like, well, this is my best friend. Like, our friendship isn't worth this band, basically. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to step away from this band and we'll work on repairing our friendship.
Can I ask what started the fist fight?
I showed up a few minutes late to leave for the show, but everybody else was like still asleep. He was like, dude, he's like, you're late. And I'm like, dude, everybody else is still asleep. And it was just a lot of tension, I guess, of like, you know, like they have that whole thing of like, don't ever like, don't ever live with your best friend. Don't ever be a roommate with your best friend. I think it was that kind of thing. Band stuff is different, right? I mean, band stuff, when you're looking at it like as business, from a business standpoint, right? You're saying like it's not personal stuff. It's business, like meaning like, you know, like, okay, well, you know, hey, dude, you're not hitting that note. You need to, you know, go back and do another take, that kind of stuff, right? When it's between friends, it starts to get more personal.
Oh, totally.
And I think it was just that kind of thing, and the tension just built and built and built, and you know, we went at it. and I like I said, in that day I left the band. I was really mad about it. I went home. I just posted on our site, like I was probably pretty vindictive about it, actually, because I posted like that day on our site that, you know, thank you, you know, the thank you but we're done post.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the other guys were like, you know, still wanted to keep going, and Stein was gonna, and I think there was one show. I think they did go play that show at that house, and I think Stein sang. That was the reason I think that we worked so well with Mohawk Barbie, and you know why we ended up doing that split is like we were the two bands that were just enough hardcore to not really be pop punk.
Oh, totally. Yeah, you guys were 100% the bands that were the harder sounding bands in the local scene, because everyone else, we were all doing the pop punk like / kind of emo shit, and there was very few bands that I remember having that harder sound.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it now, like I think Bigwig did too. They definitely had poppy stuff too, but they had like some like they would break into like
Best of Me and shit like that.
Yeah, and it's like that shit's heavy. That shit's pretty heavy. And like what is it when they do Big Mouth, when they used to do the Big Mouth cover from Gorilla Biscuits, like that's like yeah, I mean that's a straight up hardcore song.
Well, they went in that direction. Like they started off more catchy, but like I feel like you guys were the bands that were like known as more of the harder sounding bands. Yeah. Besides like the Uprises and all the other hardcore, like there was the hardcore bands, but there was like the harder punk sound. That was you guys.
We tried that. We actually did try that. We tried to play a couple hardcore shows, and that went over like a turd in a punch bowl, dude. Like that was like, oh, it was awful, dude. Like it. Okay, it was like everybody at the hardcore show was like, why is this pop punk band on this hardcore show?
I could see where that would be kind of a pain for you guys to find where your kind of place was.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing that we loved about like the NJPP scene was that like for the most part embraced us as being part of us, being part of it. And there was us. There was also that band, what was it, Flat Earth Society?
I don't know that one.
That was
Flat Earth Society?
Yeah, Flat Earth Society was, but they were more, they were just a little more hardcore. They were a combination of pop punk and hardcore, just like we were, but they were a little more hardcore where we were a little more pop punk. We were on the pop punk shows, they were on the hardcore shows. I think his name's Sean. Sean, yeah. Sean, we did like definitely cross paths a few different times, especially in like South Jersey. Because South Jersey used to have these weird shows where they would have like us and like, what was that band? Was it? I can't remember the name of the band. The drummer would play a drum set where it was a clear drum set, and he put bright red lights inside it, and the whole band would play in the dark. It was a really, really weird.
Oh, wow.
Weird. It was a really weird band, but they were like really super heavy.
I do not remember that band.
And they were like I said, they were down in South Jersey. We started to get we started getting shows down in Atlantic City and stuff. Like we started like getting shows like that far away. We started to really branch out. We played a lot in upstate. We played a lot in upstate New York. We used to play a lot of shows with. You guys ever play Nyack?
Yeah, there's a video of you guys playing at the Playhouse on YouTube.
Yeah, we played a few places. We used to play those places. Ed was in SFS for a while, actually.
Who's Ed?
Ed from the guy who ran the Playhouse shows, Ed Willick. He was in Easily Amused, and he was in a couple other bands up that way. A couple of years later, like he called us up one day and was like, "You guys need a second guitarist," and we were like, "What?" And he was, he basically like invited himself to join our band. Like he was like, "You guys need a guitarist." So at the time, it was that was after Mission. It was after the Mission record came out. We had played. Okay, so I'm trying to think of like a good way to get to this. It's like, and I'm bouncing all over the place, and it's all jumbled in my head at this point because back then we did it. We did not like hard drugs, but we did a fair amount of illicit substances.
Okay, I was more of a drinker. I was never.
Well, as I'm saying, drinking and like smoking pot and stuff. I occasionally dropped some acid, did stuff like that, but not too much of that. Like I didn't do that at shows or anything. You probably remember like people like beer bonging in the parking lot and stuff before going into a show because you couldn't bring the alcohol into a show. It's all coming back to me, but it's like coming back in pieces.
That's fine. Well, I mean, like I said, I have a bunch of browsers open with just, the SoundCloud and then the Discogs, and then there's that video on YouTube.
We have a SoundCloud?
Yeah. Well, you're on the NJPP SoundCloud.
Oh, okay. I was going to say. I was like,
yeah,
wait, what?
all of your stuff's on there. You have the it goes back to, let's see, what's this album?
Is the Nirvana cover on there?
Well, it's like some of the songs are Not Give Up, TV VCR, and then Mission, and it's got Mr. Mustache, Psycho Bitch, which is on the comp, and then you got this red album that's got Social C, this other one.
Oh, it's the red cover with just the logo.
Yeah, because it's not letting me see it.
Yeah, that's a demo that we put out that has TV VCR, like Social C, and then that has what's the other cover? There's two covers on it. There's a Kid Dynamite cover.
Well, on the red one, it's just Social C, TV VCR, and SFS, and then you have another one that looks like it's like an animal or something on the cover. Every Evil Hour Hand. This is the one you were talking about. That's where you said you kind of found your footing.
Every Evil Hour Hand is on the is that the thing with the flame?
I can't really see it because it's like a small icon.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Actually, no, wait. Now when I click on it, no, it's like that's the split with you guys, the Roadkill EP.
Yeah, it's the Roadkill EP. That's the split with us.
So gross.
Yeah, dude, that's okay.
So
the whole thing with that was okay. Chris was on the way to the dentist, right?
Oh, that's a real photo that you guys took.
That's a real photo. Chris was on the way to the dentist. He was rushing to the dentist, driving down the road, and he saw it. I think it was Stein that had said something about the name. We were already going to call it the Roadkill EP. We had decided that between like us and Mohawk Barbie, but we didn't have a cover for it. And Chris was driving to the dentist, and he pulled over his car, and he jumped out, and he took a picture.
Oh God.
We got in so much trouble for that cover, Mike. You have no idea.
Really? Tell that story.
Well, dude, we would have
graphic. It's so graphic.
Animal rights activists like get all bent out of shape that we had it on the cover. Like they would give us so much shit. We didn't kill it. We just took a picture of it. Like we're not like we murdered this thing to put it on the cover of a record. Like
I can imagine you guys being set up next to like a band who has all those vegan pamphlets like on the table, and you just put your CDs out like
Yeah, that definitely happened.
Oh, shit.
We used to make the flyers with the Tim did that. Like when he was in the band, he used to make flyers with you do old school. You cut out pictures and you put them on the thing, and you took them to the library, and you made copies in the thing, and your flyer came out, looked complete, to any adult looked completely insane, and like you brought it up to the counter to like pay for it, pay for your copies that you made at like Kinko's or wherever you did it. Tim would make them with porn.
Oh shit!
And he would cut them out of like what they call jerk mags, right? He would cut them out, and he'd put them on the flyer. And he's like, oh, people aren't going to throw this flyer away, which technically I guess is true. And then he would put like black bars over like the nipples and the vaginas and stuff.
The areas.
Yeah, he put black bars over those areas. And but dude, we almost got arrested for distributing pornography to minors.
Oh,
because of those flyers.
Oh my God.
we got in trouble for that. And then the other thing we used to do, and I don't know if you remember the Derby Firehouse, right? You remember the Derby Firehouse, right?
Yeah,
outside.
we talked about earlier. That's where I was like, that's what that show was, the 18 Bands Fest.
Yeah,
thing you're talking about?
Yep. And we used to play there a lot. And one of the things we used to do was, do you remember that there used to be these things called beer balls? Well, one of my friends worked at McDonald's. Those very what's the word I'm looking for? Those very inconspicuous cups. So my friend stole like a thing of those cups, and we had those in our van, and I'm sure I probably gave one to you at some point. But we would fill these cups with beer and just indiscriminately give them out to people at shows. Because we were like, I guess we were probably like maybe 23 at the time. So we were like, we're giving back to the community, we filling these things up. I think that probably helped us too, because like, honestly, like people were always like crowded around our van. That's because they were getting free beer.
That's good marketing. It's like you guys in the boxcar van were just the party vans.
Well, exactly. And we had quite a few good times with those guys, like partying with those guys after shows or before shows or during shows.
You had mentioned how you were 23 at the time, and I remember Sean in our band, he was older, so he could buy us beer. Like we'd be like, you got to buy us beer tonight, Sean. It's like Saturday. We're gonna hang out on your roof. Like, so you're that age, and then this is like in the late 90s, and then you guys get it to 2007. Is like one of the things that, at the end in 2007 that made you stop was just because I talk about the scene changing all the time. And I feel like I don't know, for some reason, like I think like you personally did not like that scene change in the 2000s. Am I right?
I just felt like it was like, okay, here's the thing, right? With in the 2000s, right? There was like a bad pop punk band isn't that bad, but a bad emo band is like horrible, dude. Like, and I like emo. I like emo. I like a lot of good emo bands. I always loved you guys. Like I always loved you guys. I always loved like try to think of some other ones. Let's see, like Sunny Day Real Estate and stuff like that. Like I liked a lot of those bands, right? And I still like a lot of those bands. And I like bands, and I like the bands from that era. I like Story of the Year. The bands of that ilk, like I like that stuff. It's not that I don't like it, right? But when it's bad, it's really, really bad. And like where a pop punk band that's bad, it's like still okay, because it's not as like horrible on your ears, like and it's just some of those bands were just so bad, and it just also became very like, oh well, so and so is making it. Our scene became more cutthroat, I feel.
Oh, totally.
These younger kids, like, they didn't understand what they didn't get. And I look back on it now, and I always think of it as like, it was something that was like so much bigger than the sum of its parts. Like when you look back on it and you can feel it. And I've actually talked with people, in other places. Like when I went, I ended up talking to someone. I ended up going to Vegas, right? I was in Vegas at punk rock bowling, and someone recognized me as being from Stick Figure Suicide, and I was like, wait, how is this fucking possible? Like, I'm like, what the hell? Like, and this was like not that many years ago, right? And I'm just like, dude, what the hell? Like, because the thing was, we were doing punk rock karaoke, and this dude looks at one of the dudes was from, I think maybe it was one of the dudes from the Dwarves or like one of those bands, right? Was going to get up and do a song. And then I had signed up to do a song, and I happened to be like after him, and there was another guy after me that was in one of the other bands, and one of the guys on the stage is like, "Oh, this is awesome, 3 pro singers in a row," and I'm like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" And he's like, "No," he's like, "You were in that band from the East Coast," and I'm like, "Wait, what the hell? Like, how do you know this?" And I ended up going up on stage and doing a Dickies song, and it was kind of crazy because the guy from the Dickies was in the punk rock karaoke band, like Steve.
Oh shit!
Stan Lee was in the band.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, dude, it's an awesome dude. If you ever get a chance, go.
I went there in 2000. When the fuck was it? Like 2007. I went there and I got annihilated, and I didn't even get to see the shows because I was hanging out with this like San Diego crew that I met when I was living out there, and we got there at like midnight, did mind erasers, drank till 7 in the morning, slept until 8 in the morning. So I slept an hour, kept drinking until 3 in the afternoon, and then I passed out from 3 in the afternoon until 8 the next day. So I completely missed the fucking show, but we were just partying in it's like the old school Vegas.
Yeah. It takes place in Old Vegas. It's I always, when I go, I get a room in the Golden Nugget.
That's where we were. That's got
Yep.
that fountain with the bear and shit.
Yep, and everybody's there. Like, it's like crazy because there's like and it's got that
Or the eagle screams like once an hour or something. It's a mechanical eagle. Do you remember this?
I'm trying to remember. I mean, I was pretty jacked up the whole time I was out there, but yeah, it was crazy because I ended up like hanging out in the bar with Eric Melvin and like a couple other people because they were staying in the same hotel.
Yeah, we didn't see any of those guys. We were all just in that bar that was next to the fountain, but like everyone else was in the casino like playing the whole time until like all hours of the evening.
Yeah, dude, it was just, and that's such a like good time, and it's just like, do you want punk rock from noon till 4 in the morning every day for 4 days? Then go do this.
Yeah, that was like when my liver could handle it. Now it's 2 days straight, and the third day, I've said this before, I was like, I just can't. I cannot fucking hang anymore. It's so hard.
Yeah, it was crazy. My friends like dragged me out there. Like, I had kind of after SFS, there was a time period where I kind of like just didn't have anything to do with music. I just kind of got jaded, and I was kind of just like, I'm not gonna do music anymore. It pulled me back. Eventually, it pulls us all back, right? But I at the time I was just like, I'm just done. I didn't go to shows. I didn't do anything. Like, and because a lot of the time when I would go to shows, I would see bands, and I would just be like, wait, why wasn't that us? You know, like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
I'm sure you kind of felt the same way.
Yeah, I did for a little bit, and then I was like, I don't want to live that life. I was like, I don't want to fucking tour anymore. I'm sick of practicing. I'm sick of bringing all my shit into a show. Like, the playing is great. That 30 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever it is, like, that part I love. But it's just everything around that, I was like, yeah, I'm good. I don't want to do that shit anymore.
Yeah, no, exactly. And people don't realize that. People don't think about, like, as you know from being in a band, that it's like the hardest job you'll ever have to like
make no money.
Make no money.
Yep.
Like it's like I'm doing all this work, and it's like that's why when people are like, "Oh, that band sold out," it's like, dude, if only someone gave me the chance to do that. Like,
yeah.
Like I would have done that. Like you put so much work into it. In the end of the day, it's so little payoff that you have to love it. You have to just absolutely love it in order to do it.
Well, it's like, yeah, sorry, go on.
Oh, no, I was saying I never got to finish the whole story about how Dave ended up producing our record, which I thought was a pretty cool story, and I think where we maybe should end.
Yeah, perfect.
So we were playing with the band called the Sharpshooters. Last of the Sharpshooters is the name of a Down by Law record, and he did a band called Sharpshooters, and we were playing with them at some like little dive bar in New York City that Todd Anthony had set up. I was like, you know what? It might be totally the dorkiest thing in the world to do, but I'm gonna bring my copy of Can I Say, and I'm gonna ask Dave to sign it. And I was just like, you know what? I know it's not the band that we're playing with, whatever. I was like, but I'm going to totally geek this out and just like fanboy it up because I've been a fan of Dave Smalley forever. And like, when am I going to get, a chance to get this record signed, right? I go and I very timidly approach him. Like, He's sitting at the bar we're playing at, and like before we play, and I'm timidly approach him, and I have my copy of Can I Say, like I think behind my back with one hand, like I was really nervous, right? And I go up to him and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, and I told him straight up, I was like, I don't know when the opportunity is ever going to present itself again, and I'm sorry, if this is like really dorky or geeky or whatever, but would you sign this, right? And his reaction like totally completely took away any fear I had, because he was like, oh my god, he's like, I'd love to sign that for you. He's like, that is so cool that like you want me to sign this. Like,
oh, wow.
he was totally like completely unaware of like, in the way I look at it, like unaware of who he is, to like the punk scene, or to who he is to like my life. And we play, and I end up talking to him, and then at the end of the night, I gave him a copy of the 7-inch, because the 7-inch was out, right? I gave him the 7-inch, and I said, yeah, we're the band on this side. I was like, I had heard that you produce bands. I just, asked him, I was like, hey, can you listen to this and let me know if you'd be interested in producing it, right? And he said, oh, thanks. So he graciously accepted it, like genuinely like thanked me for the record, which I was just like, wait a minute, I'm like this, like, just random like fanboy giving him a record. He's not like telling me to fuck off. And I learned years later that that's just not like in Dave's wheelhouse. Like, Dave's just not that person, like, ever. So we end up like doing this whole thing, right? And we end up playing, and you know how Neil did the shows at the Palace. So Down by Law is coming through, and I'm like, Neil, you got to book them at the Palace. And he's like, okay. So I come up the stairs, I come inside, and Down by Law is sound checking, right? And I walk in, and Dave holds his hand up and stops the band right in the middle of a sound check. And he's like, hey, Paul, it's good to see you. And I'm like, look, wait a minute. I like talked to you like a year ago, and like you remember my name? Like, what the fuck, right? So I come, he gets off, he sets his guitar down on the stand or whatever, gets off stage, walks over, and he's like, so I was listening to the record. He's like, if like what your guys are doing on here, he's like, if this is the sort of thing like you, he's like, and I watched your set, when we played that day. If what you guys are trying to do on this, on this record, if this is what you're trying to do, not only would I want to produce your record, he's like, I'd fucking love to do it. And I was like, what? Like, I was like, what the hell? A few months later, we booked a time with Chris Gibson. It was a studio, Upstart Studios, and it was in Hoboken, and it was basically his apartment was like made into a studio. His bedroom was off to one side, and the whole rest of the apartment, like where your living room would be and stuff, was like the drum room, and it was really crazy, dude. And it was like this like expensive Hoboken apartment. And he's like, I just got off the phone with Dave Smalley. He's like. And then he looked at me. He was like, "Wait a minute! I just want to say that again. I just got off the phone with Dave Smalley because he was kind of like amazed that this was happening too. And he's like, and Dave like told me what he wants you to do. So Dave was originally going to produce our record, but then what happened was he couldn't produce our record, not completely. Like, he was going to come in and do it every day. But his band, I think it was Sharpshooters, were recording at Big Blue Meanie, which is like right there too, and I think it's in they were recording not at Big Blue Meanie, they were recording at Water Music, and he planned it that way. He planned to be here basically to already be in the area, so that we didn't have to pay money for him to travel. He like went out of his way to like plan it so that he would already be here for some other reason. I'm just like, dude, this guy is like ridiculous. Like, how does this person exist in the world, not only in the world, but in our punk scene? Like, how does this person exist? You know how it is in the studio, right? Sometimes, the takes don't go the way you want or whatever, or you want to do more takes. So you end up going over, right? So he ended up going over, but he had called Chris, he had called Gibby, and he told him like, hey, we're going to, this is what I want you to do. He's like, these are the kind of mics I want you to use for Paul's voice. These are the kind of things I want you to do with this. This is what I want you to do with that. And then Chris had some really cool things he did too, where like he had this drum, he had a bass drum, and then he had a cardboard box that he like put in front of the bass drum, and then he cut a hole in it, and he like hung a mic into the cardboard box. to get like a slightly more boomy sound on the bass, and then he would mix those two, the kick drum, which he mixed those two together. So that's like where that kick drum sound comes from. Like, so the Chris had some really cool ideas, and Dave came in the last 2 days and just mixed it for like 2 days, and then we got it mastered with Alan Duchess, because back then you got everything done with Alan Duchess, if you wanted to get it done right. Dave went over and he almost couldn't make it. This is the most ridiculous thing about Dave Smalley right here. This blew my mind. We were paying him like, I don't remember how much it was, but it was not a lot. Like, it was a very like budget bargain basement price that he quoted us because we were like a new band. He lost money that he was paying for the studio to make good on the deal he made with us to come and mix the record. And I'm just like, how is that possible, dude? And then, like I said, then the thing with K-Rock, we did get played at K-Rock by Matt Pinfield. And the reason we got played was because he saw Dave Smalley's name on it. My friend worked at K-Rock. He was like a Howard Stern intern. He did some stuff like, not like on the air intern, but like an actual intern for Howard Stern. He ended up just chatting up Matt and giving Matt the record without any of us knowing any of this. And then he just called us up one day and was like, dude, you guys are going to be on the radio tonight. You should listen. We're like, what the fuck? And then like we were actually in the ad. Like, he mentioned our name in the damn ad, dude. I was like, what? Like,
awesome.
It was like, listen tonight when I play new stuff by, and I think it was like, I want to say it was like Biohazard and some other bands. And there we were, like from that, things started kind of happening.
Well, cool, man. Well, I am gonna wrap this up. So last 2 questions before I ask the last one. What would you like to plug? It could be about you. It could be about someone else. It could be about both.
I guess like I said, I plugged a couple things already. Sophistipunx, that's Sophistipunx. That's the band, the most recent band I did. I'm pretty sure COVID killed us. We haven't practiced since, COVID lockdown. We're still friends. My guitar player and my bass player are both getting married in October. So they've been very, very busy with that.
So you want to promote their weddings?
No, not promote their weddings. Just promoting the band. And then, like I said, there's still a lot of good music going on. People should definitely go check out the Mill Hill. Check out the band Pissed. Like they're I mentioned them earlier. They're one of my favorites. Teenage Bigfoot from Philly's really good. They're friends too. That we played some shows with them. There's still, like I said, there's still like a scene going on. People should definitely like look around, and it's more underground than it was when we were doing it, but it's still there, and there's still like definitely some cool stuff happening.
Cool, man. All right. So last question: what scene ethics do you hold on to this day?
I feel like, I don't know if I learned it from shows, but like my whole philosophy is just I do live by like the golden rule of like treat others how you want to be treated. And I feel like we did that. I feel like just we were a family, and I feel like the one thing I learned is that, don't let small shit become huge and, ruin something, that's otherwise great, because I think that there was some like infighting and stuff between some of the bands, right? And I feel like that kind of hurt us as a whole. It's not good to have like family members fighting. And I don't know, I guess, like I said, just don't, like, what the one thing I learned from the scene is like you don't have to be dog eat dog, and there's room for everyone. Everyone can have a little piece of the pie. I feel like that's the main thing I learned from the scene. And I feel like to this day, like, I'm still friendly with all of you, I would say. I don't have any, like, you and I don't think we've talked like this in probably decades, but, occasionally, see Jeremy Humble. He's still Jeremy Humble to me. But Jeremy Hernandez, and seeing like, Steve and the guys in Trenton with our scene, I feel like we we all kind of were part of something that no one else will ever really understand the way that we do, and that like we'll always have that common bond.